Hi everyone, it's Brett from Metropole here. There's been some really important information released lately around the Brisbane property market, and although across the board property prices have really only increased by about 1%, there's been some suburbs that have achieved double-digit growth. How does that happen? Well, by looking at the numbers and more importantly looking at the suburbs, it generally tells a story, and I usually find that there's two types of suburbs that appear in that list. The first one is what I like to call the usual suspects. The usual suspects are always on the list. Every couple of years, you tend to recognise them straight away. They're the aspirational suburbs where people really want to get into that suburb because it's close to employment hubs. And because of that, wages are continually rising and pushing up house prices because people can afford to pay more. People within that suburb are either renovating or knocking over and improving their house, and that's again putting upward pressure on prices. They're generally those kinds of suburbs that are gentrifying, where 5 or 10 years ago those older, newer houses are starting to make that transition, and people are coming in, younger families, and doing up properties. That's what we want. They're generally closer to employment hubs, they're closer to public transport, good school catchments, which are a magnet for families, and also lifestyle precincts, and convenience and walkability starting to become a big thing. The other type of suburb we seem to find are those newer suburbs. They've never been on the list before. They've only really been suburbs for the last 12 or 18 months, because 5 years ago they were probably big acreage properties or areas where maybe cows and sheep were living, and now there's a new suburb there. There's new house and land packages, there's a new school perhaps, a new shopping centre, maybe McDonald's or a Hungry Jack's have moved in there. They're not aspirational suburbs. People live in those suburbs because that's really all they can afford to get to. There's a huge amount of supply on offer as well. You could be building properties out there for the next 5 or 10 years. So supply is incredibly high and demand is usually quite low. So they're the two distinguishing suburbs that you tend to find on there. The first one is the known, proven and trusted areas that always have those capital growth. The second one I would suggest is more about physical growth. It's not capital growth. It's physical growth. The area is starting to transform. But the problem is that doesn't last, because 2 or 3 years later, they just do the same thing up the road. They put another new suburb in, and then another one and another one. So those suburbs never continue to have that same level of growth, where the usual suspects will continue to have that level of growth. That's where I'll be investing my money, and that's what's going to create wealth for me and my clients over the longer term. Thanks for listening.